My name is Chad Lizan, and the proposition that I'm going to be arguing today is conventional combustion engine cars are more eco-friendly than electric cars. Now, before I continue with my speech, I'd like to give some background history on electric cars and how we know them today. During President Richard Nixon's presidency, he created what is known as Project Independence, which was a response to the 1973 OPEC oil embargo, which affected the United States economy and the everyday lives of American citizens. Basically, what Project Independence was a request from the president to companies to research and develop alternative forms of energy so that the U.S. would not be susceptible to another economic crash due to an embargo placed by a foreign country. And it also kickstarted the research and development on electric cars. Now today, electric cars are seen as a green alternative for transportation. We believe people who purchase the car believe that they will be contributing to slowing down global warming, and the government also believes this, and they place incentives on the purchase of these vehicles, such as the $2,500 to $7,500 tax credit from the IRS. Now, the three main points that I'll be using to argue my position is: one, fossil fuels and natural gases are still being used; two, electric car production is energy intensive; and three, battery production pollutes. As for my first point, fossil fuels and natural gas are still being used. In 2017, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said that 63% of all the electricity produced in the United States was either by burning fossil fuels, and natural gas. And to break that up into subcategories, 32% was by burning natural gas, 30% was by burning coal, and 1% was burning petroleum such as diesel and gasoline. On the same report, it showed that only 17% of the electricity produced in the United States was produced by renewable forms of energy such as solar, wind, and geothermal energy. On the same government website, there's a different tab where you can look at the energy productions of each individual state. And in California, fossil fuels and natural gases are responsible for 43.57% of California's electricity. And just like the national average and percent of the electricity produced, renewable forms of energy is smaller compared to that percentage. Now, why is that important? Like I said in the beginning, people switch to electric cars because they think that they're going to be using less fossil fuels, when in all reality, the fossil fuels that they would put in, say, a traditional car, is put into factories which produce the electricity that powers their electric cars. Now on to my second point. Electric car production is energy intensive. A study by the Fraunhofer Institute for Building Physics states that it takes twice as much energy to produce an electric car than it does a combustion engine car. Now the reason why is because electric cars run on batteries which contain energy, and they need a large amount of batteries compared to a combustion engine car that has a battery that's only there to run appliances while the engine's off and to power the starter, which gets the engine going, and then the alternator takes over all those responsibilities. A 2017 study by the IVL Swedish Environmental Research Institute found that the greenhouse gas burden of battery production is 150 to 200 kilograms of carbon dioxide every kilowatt hour. Now, with all this talk about battery production, I would like to move to my third and final point of battery production pollutes. In a 2013 report by the Environmental Protection Agency, Design for the Environment, it showed that lithium-ion batteries, which are currently the batteries that are favored in most vehicles, they use elements such as nickel and cobalt, and they have a significant effect on global warming, environmental pollution, and human health problems. And environmental health pollution and health problems can be seen in developing countries such as Chile and the Congo, where their economy is dependent on the mining of these raw elements that are used in these batteries, where a majority of their water supply is tainted and polluted by these raw elements, which kill off their ecosystem. And when they ingest that water, or say that crop that they use when they watered it, they end up getting different health factors that lead to fatal incidents. Other places that are also affected are China, Russia, and even the United States. In conclusion, I just want to question you, the audience: is it really worth it to convert to an electric vehicle? I don't think so. electric vehicles have a significant impact on the environment, and they still use the same kind of fuels as a traditional engine car, and it costs more to buy, and it also uses a lot more energy to produce. Therefore, electric cars have the same, if not greater, effect on the environment and global warming. Thank you.
Car that I have currently, it uses I go to a gas station to fill it up, and it's more of a used car rather than it's more recent than my first car.
Right.
I mean, but I think, yeah, I get what you're saying about electric cars being more expensive because with this car, even this new car that I got, even though it was like $11,000, I'm sure a used electric car would have cost maybe $20,000.
No, more.
30,000?
No, more.
50?
Around there, if it has high mileage.
Damn.
All right, well, Chad, the proposition was very clearly identified. That part I think is solid, and then you gave a little bit of background information about the drive to create electric cars and alternatives to our dependence on oil and fossil fuels. That was fine. The secondary claims are previewed pretty clearly. The first point, your argument basically is that the energy used to drive electric cars still comes from fossil fuels and natural gas. So the real question, and I thought you had some nice information about how much of our energy that we use for the electric grid comes from fossil fuels. I thought that was fine, and only a limited amount comes from renewable sources. The question then is the trade-off equitable? In other words, if we get electricity and we, 2/3 of that electricity comes from burning fossil fuels, is that still a better deal than all of the energy being from fossil fuels when we're running a regular automobile? I didn't hear any information that gave me that kind of comparison. I know the argument that you're making, I just don't know that there's enough information to follow through on it and say that the trade-off is insubstantial enough, or that in the long run it's you're still using the same amount of fossil fuel energy. So that seems to be a place where there's a little bit of weakness on that first point, although you did have some evidence that's applicable on that. The second point concerns the issue on the environment, and you've got some good information here about the production of a variety of things on the car that are going to create potential problems. We're back to the same sort of thing. I'm not sure that we got the trade-off that's going on here that's important. In the long run, the price element doesn't really get discussed, and we heard Shane talking about that a little bit. Is there going to be a value on it? The incentives that are provided, do they pay off? Do they get us a return? I think that you needed a little bit more information to show that was something that doesn't really get us what we want either. The battery production argument is, I think, a little bit clearer, although it is also unquantifiable. But there is some kind of generic evidence that suggests in the long run that the environmental consequences are greater. Like I said, I think all three arguments suffer from the same general problem, and that is that we need more comparative data. And you found arguments, issues to develop, suggesting that the electric cars aren't really getting us what we want, but I'm not sure that you've gotten to the point where it's convincing that the trade-offs aren't, sufficient enough in that particular thing. I know the direction you're going. I just think the proof is partial at this point as opposed to more complete. It was very nicely presented, though. You do a good job speaking to the audience and trying to stay engaged with everybody, which enhances your credibility quite a bit. All right. Thank you.